Welcome to the Marketing Spotlight, where we share the career journeys of Michigan State University marketing alumni. I'm your host, Katie Sadler, and today with us we have Shannon Long. Shannon graduated from MSU in 2014 with a double major in marketing and international relations. She's now the founder and CEO of Brew Export and Hard Seltzer Box Co. Shannon, welcome to the Marketing Spotlight.
Hey, Katie, thanks a bunch for having me on. I'm excited to be virtually back at MSU talking to you.
Yes, we're happy to have you with us today. Shannon, we're going to jump right in with some rapid fire questions so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Wonderful. Describe yourself in 3 words.
I would say dynamic, hardworking / workaholic. There's a lot there, and compassionate.
Wonderful. And what was your favorite undergraduate class?
Okay, I can't remember the name of the professor, but he's like the big marketing professor, like the 300 level marketing class, I think.
Gil Harrell.
Yes. Okay. I wanted to say it was Harold, but I wasn't sure. That was my favorite class. He's amazing.
Awesome. And what was the hardest class?
Oh, I'm like not in love with like math or like computer science, like coding stuff. So I would say those two were, I did well in them, but they were a struggle.
I remember that first computer science class that everyone had to take and struggled with. So I don't think you're alone there. Shannon, what was your first job after graduating?
I actually didn't have a first job. I started my company while I was at MSU. So I basically graduated in December of 2014 and then officially started my company. I think I formed the LLC in March of 2015. So that was my first job, I guess.
Awesome. And who inspires you and why?
This is a tough question. It's as lame as it sounds. I'm going to say my parents, because I have a lot of respect for like their work ethic, each of them, as well as, kind of their work-life balance and their compassion and, things like that. I think most people probably say like some kind of business leader, but I don't think there's any one business leader that I wholly agree with everything on. So I'm going with mom and dad.
I think that's a perfect answer. What is your favorite book?
Okay. Everyone needs to read Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
Okay.
It's amazing. Everyone in marketing or in the business college should read it.
Awesome. What clubs were you involved in as a student?
I was president of the MSU Marketing Association, and then I was also vice president of the MSU Entrepreneurship Association.
Busy. I love it.
Yeah.
And what was one of the most memorable classes you had, or the most memorable professor, if that's not Gil?
No, I think it would probably be the class that I started my company in. So I think it was like my marketing 415 or something. It was international marketing. So it was a combination of both of my degrees. So kind of like a capstone course. And the professor basically said, take one product, export it to one market. People doing like peanut butter and all these other, kind of different products. And I chose to do beer. And in doing that kind of whole export project, I discovered the opportunity for US beer internationally. And now 7 years later, Brew Export's doing millions of dollars in revenue. And so, yeah, I would say that was definitely the most important, most memorable class for me was that international marketing one.
That makes a lot of sense. And the last question we have for you, crunchies or peanut barrel?
Crunchies.
All right. Shannon, thanks for participating in Rapid Fire. We're going to dive into the rest of the podcast now.
Sounds good.
So right after, I guess, while you were still at MSU, you started Brew Export. Can you tell us about Brew Export and starting that company?
Yeah. So essentially, Brew Export manages the international sales for craft breweries across the US. We've worked with like 300 different craft breweries across the US to manage their international sales to 30 plus different countries. So an example of this would be one of my clients in Denmark hosts the largest, best craft beer festival in all of Europe. And we managed and coordinated and imported all 60 craft breweries from the US for that huge beer festival. Things like that is the projects Brew Export takes on. And how I started it was kind of like I said in that class. And then shortly after I graduated, I did a pitch competition at Dublin. and I won $1,000. So I was like, all right, we're official. This company's happening. And yeah, and here we are 7 years later. I mean, it's definitely been a grind, but yeah, started it at Dublin basically.
That's
And
wild. That's a great story though. I love that.
yeah, I
And
guess
then,
as a lesson to or students, you're going to have to do these projects either way, so you might as well kind of make them worth your time, and who knows like what they can turn into.
yeah, absolutely. Choose something that you're passionate about, right?
Definitely. Yep.
So along those lines, what started your passion for the craft brew industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I turned 21, I got to finally like experience and shop around and things like that at the store. And just I used to drink like Guinness a lot. I liked like the low alcohol and like how slowly, you can drink it because it's kind of a heavier beer. And I was actually at Crunchies and I asked for Guinness, and they didn't have Guinness, but they had Founders Oatmeal Stout, which is a similar beer. But I tried that oatmeal stout from Founders and never looked back. That beer just absolutely blew my mind compared to Guinness, and kind of the rest is history. There's a lot to love in the craft beer industry as far as, the people, and there's so much passion in it. And once you kind of get started, and I started the business when I was 22, and I could, buy beer in bulk, which was pretty crazy because the year before is when I was even legally able to buy alcohol. And once I got into the business, I just absolutely loved it, and the demand is there for amazing craft beers. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then Shannon, recently you started a second company, Hard Seltzer Box Co. Tell us about the differences between Brew Export and Hard Seltzer Box Co. and why you wanted to start the second company.
Yeah. So for Brew Export, all of my clients are based in other countries. So all of them are retailers, importers, distributors based in foreign markets. For Hard Seltzer Box Company, my clients are here in the United States. So kind of a totally different business model, but still involving craft alcohol. And essentially how it started was my brother wanted a founder's advent calendar, and they sold out instantly. I told him I would get him one. They sold out instantly. My mom and I were on the phone, couldn't get one because you had to call in because of COVID stuff. And we decided to make him one. And so we dropped it off at his door. Every day of December, he opened up a new beer and texted my mom and I like this beer. I don't like this beer. And it was just a really like simple, easy way to connect with him and talk with him every day of December. And I absolutely loved it. And I got thinking that, around the US would love a hard seltzer version. So I started the company to make a hard seltzer advent calendar or really a countdown calendar. You can count down to, retirement, vacation, whatever. A countdown calendar is the reason I started the company. And it has 24 different craft hard seltzers from 24 different breweries. And from there, it's kind of expanded. So we did the countdown calendar. The launch was fantastic. People around the United States absolutely loved it. And now we're doing a spring, a summer, and fall variety pack, which is 12 completely different hard seltzers from 12 different craft breweries. So real true variety, not, the 4 flavors, 3 of each flavor, and one of them always sits in your fridge. This is a real kind of super sampler pack. And those are bought online at hardseltzerboxco.com.
Shannon, both of these businesses are so interesting to me. I'm sure our listeners are going to love this. How do you manage these like massive businesses? Do you have a team that you work with? Are you doing everything on your own? And kind of how do you manage the business dynamics of starting something that's amassed to be something so big so quickly?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And it's definitely hard, and I definitely work a lot. Like I said, I think I still struggle with that work-life balance a little bit, but Brew Export, I grew like very organically. I did both businesses I own 100% on, didn't take on any investors or any loans or anything like that. I just kept putting my money back into each business. And you just keep grinding. You just keep your feet moving. And if anyone's like looking to start a business, don't look at the task of starting a business. Like that's terrifying. No one that's intimidating. I'm intimidated by that. But if you just look at, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, and just keep moving, a year or two later, you look back and see all these little chunks pushed off the stone, these little steps that you took. Yeah, I would just say keep moving, keep shuffling. I have employees that I manage, would be nowhere without my team, but I didn't start hiring for Brew Export until I was 27. I started when I was 22. So I didn't want that responsibility initially of being responsible for people's families and like their livelihood. So it took a little while to kind of mature and get to that level. But now that I have these employees, I love them like their family, and we all work great together. So the team is definitely critical.
That's awesome. So Shannon, what was that first step for you? You said there's a lot of little steps that go into starting a business. What was step number one?
It's a great question. So step number one is trying to solve a problem. So everyone, I think, just starts a business and doesn't really identify if they're solving a problem or if it's something people even like want, you know what I mean? Where with Brew Export, as I was doing this capstone, project, I talked to founders, I talked to tons of craft breweries, in the United States, and used the angle, hey, I'm a student doing this project. Can I just, buy you a beer and have a chat? And everyone says yes to that meeting. You know what I mean? They want to help a student out. So I got talking to all these different craft breweries, and they were getting calls from and emails from, interested buyers in foreign countries, and they're putting them right to their spam filter. Like everything with the word export went to spam. A lot of these breweries weren't even reading them because exporting beer is so complicated, between like the quality control, keeping it cold, the logistics, getting it paid, getting paid from a foreign market, the compliance, the labeling, there's so much that goes into it. The breweries were just like, hard pass, no. So as I heard that, I was like, I can do that, with my internships and kind of my degrees. I was like, I think I could handle that for them. And that was step one, was like identifying a problem that could be solved.
And what's been the most surprising part of the alcohol industry to you?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess how many beer styles there are. There is such a range of beer for every palate. You know what I mean? Like like the new things these craft breweries are coming up with on a daily basis is remarkable. And I think the coolest thing is, Germany and Belgium, like they started what we know as beer. Like they are the OGs. We took a very American approach by going with those original styles and then kind of flipping them on our head and, adding things, taking things away, and making them uniquely ours. And that is how all of these different kind of craft beers have been created. And now there's like 7,000 craft breweries in the US. And a lot of these are run by, just your normal everyday people. And I think that's really a beautiful thing, to have that kind of small business that impacts the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Shannon, I feel like you probably have had to try a lot of beers being in the business that you're in. What's one of the most unique beers that you've had?
Oh my goodness. That's an amazing question. I'm going to have like the lamest answer to talking
That's
about.
okay.
But so I guess maybe being in the beer industry, like I don't really drink that much anymore, like really at all. And what I really love is there's a ton of craft non-alcoholic beers out there. So they have all, like, I love the taste of beer, but like I'm too busy. I can't have the booze. I can't afford to be hungover. Like, I just can't have that. So now there's the taste of beer, but with no booze, which I know to every college student sounds like a horrible idea, but for me, I love it. And Athletic Brewing's one. Brewdog has tons of them. So check them out. They're fun.
Awesome. I think that's one of the interesting things about beer, right? The evolution of the different forms that this can take, because, 5 years ago, I feel like non-alcoholic alcohols were not really well known. And now we're seeing like a lot of no alcohol wines, or to your point, beers. And there's like an evolution of this industry that's probably taking a turn that people didn't see coming.
Yes, it's 100%. All the data on it shows that non-alcoholic products are going to be on the rise for the generation a little bit younger than us. They're smarter than us. I think they realize that alcohol can do. And in foreign markets, we sell a lot of non-alcoholic beer. They have appreciation for it even more than we probably do here in the US.
Okay, so Shannon, changing the conversation a little bit, can you tell me how your marketing degree has supported your career path?
Oh my goodness. Like every day. I mean, I Oh, I don't know where. I mean, I give it all, like without that marketing degree, I wouldn't have had a company because I wouldn't have done that project and got the idea and this and that. But I use that degree and those experiences and experience from the MSU Marketing Association daily and making decisions for both companies, really. And I would say specifically the international marketing classes were critical for my company.
So I guess for students, don't say no to any classes because you never really know what class is going to spark something really interesting for you.
Exactly, totally.
So Shannon, you and I were actually in MSUMA together when we were in school. And how would you say clubs like MSUMA or other organizations have impacted your leadership style now that you're leading teams and working with such different people from all over the world?
That's a great question. So when I was president of the MSU Marketing Association, I think our e-board was like 8 or 9, like 20, 21-year-old females, which is like a really, I guess, intense group of people, where now I work with like a lot of, males or just like, more adult people. So I think the MSUMA definitely offered some experience in managing people and whatnot. So that kind of gave me a hard learning lesson on best practices and whatnot and ways to, I guess, improve. I mean, we did a great job. I think you can vouch for that.
Yeah.
It was definitely managing college students, and there's definitely has its challenges. And then for the Entrepreneurship Association, that club was a little bit different, but that was really like, I don't know if people have seen the MSU startup bus. So like we were the first one to kind of go out on that. The Entrepreneurship Association, everyone's head works a little different there. They're all kind of entrepreneurs. So their interests and their kind of ways of speaking and the events they wanted were different. So I mean, really what I learned from both of them is you have to like warp yourself to what your employees need and not force them to kind of follow the line you want, but support them how they need to be supported, if that makes sense.
Mhm. No, it definitely does. And I think there's something to be said for managing your peers. I think in a lot of scenarios, that's even harder than managing up or managing down, because managing people who are at the same level as you or at the same age as you, there's a whole different dynamic to doing that because roles aren't necessarily clear and where everybody kind of sits.
Definitely. So it was a good learning lesson.
Yes, absolutely. So Shannon, from undergrad to now, is there anything that you would do differently?
No, I don't think I would do anything differently. I mean, I definitely recommend, I'm happy I started my business when I did. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you have to graduate from college and, go right in the workforce and start building your resume to kind of get anywhere in life. And I say the best time to start a business is as soon as you graduate college. You have, I mean, I don't know what student loan situation people have, but you don't have a family to support. You don't have a mortgage to pay. Like you can move back in with your parents, save money, and just grind and work on your business. You know what I mean? So I would say, just do it if you're thinking about doing it. And I guess I'm really happy I did it. And I don't think I would really change anything that I can think of.
No, that's a great answer because that's what brought you here, right?
Mhm.
So
Definitely.
awesome. And then Shannon, to kind of wrap us up today, is there any advice you wish to share with our listeners?
Yes, like leverage that you're a student. Like I was saying, I, as a student, was like, hey, a recent graduate, or hey, I'm a student. Can I meet with you and buy you a beer and just chit chat? Everyone says yes to that. Like no one says no to that meeting. So like leverage that opportunity while you have it and to expand your network and gain knowledge. And as a follow-up to that, after the meeting, send a handwritten thank you note. I know everyone says that in the business college, but do it. Like I can tell you that when I was like 21, I was meeting all these people, then I would follow up with a thank you note and they would never forget me. They're like, oh, this girl sent me a thank you note. She was so great right from the beginning. Not follow my footsteps because that sounds really pretentious, but like definitely recommend that people do that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great piece of advice because those relationship building tools really never go away and people appreciate the effort.
100%.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate learning about both of your businesses and kind of how you've gotten to where you are today.
Definitely. I shout out to all the students out there. Connect with me on LinkedIn. We are hiring. Would love to get some MSU students involved. And Katie, thanks for thinking of me and inviting me on this podcast, and go green.
Go white. So for our listeners, definitely connect with Shannon, especially if you're interested in working at either of her companies. You can find her on LinkedIn. Make sure you also check out the other episodes of the Marketing Spotlight. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and essentially anywhere else you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next time.